This video is dedicated to Christian Roberts. Christian, thank you. Peer and Toothy versus Mizzet Draco Genius, Rograkh Son of Rograkh and Kediss Emberclaw Familiar, and Angus MacKenzie. Decent opening hand for us, just hoping to get into some land-based ramp, can help fix our colours hopefully. And end up drawing into a blue land on our first turn anyway, so let's get down the forest. I will get down the Soul Ring and the Coalition Relic next turn. Up against some players that can get rid of artifacts, so don't fancy running out a Soul Ring on turn 1. Miri's Guile is the first spell being cast. And then the other two players just playing out a single basic. The Rograkh has come into play as well. So on our turn, we will go for the basic, tap that down for a Soul Ring, and we'll get down the Coalition Relic, tap that down with a counter on it straight away. Kediss coming down during that turn cycle, Mizzet just tapped out, and then it was Enlightened Tutor from the Angus MacKenzie player, and they searched for a Sterling Grove. We can actually get both Peer and Toothy into play here, so let's go for both of our commanders as well. The Sterling Grove enters play for Angus MacKenzie. Then it's a Brass Squire, so obviously an equipment-based deck, which is pretty good with the dinosaur that's in our hand, and the Kediss will turn in sideways against the Draco Genius. Then just a replicating ring for Mizzet. We get round to our turn. I don't think I want to go for the Time Spiral just yet. I think we can set up this turn. The Runic Armor Saw is pretty good against an equipment deck. So why don't we get that into play. And then we can also get down the Thassa before we end up wheeling it. We might go for the wheel next turn. And then as for swinging in, we can take Toothy in against the Enchantress player. And Peer can go into the right. We can look like we're trying to spread damage around. More enchantments from the Angus MacKenzie player. That is Bonds of Mortality. Not one that you see so often. Can get rid of Hexproof and Indestructible from creatures. And there's the first equipment of the game. Sword of Body and Mind is being put onto the Rograkh by the Brass Squire. That will activate or trigger our dinosaur. So we will put a counter on Toothy, or a couple of counters, as well as draw a card obviously. They do have protection from Simic there though, unfortunately for us. So yep, turning that in sideways towards us is going to have us mill. The Kediss goes in at the Draco Genius again. Damage is going to be shared around thanks to Kediss. Oh wow, but I actually just saw Kozilek flash up really quickly there. So we did get milled, but everything got shuffled back thanks to the Kozilek. So we don't actually have to worry about mill from that thing as long as we keep hitting the Eldrazi. This deck is brought to us by Christian Roberts, by the way, long-time Mythic supporter of the channel. Gets to submit a deck once a month thanks to that tier. And he actually asked me to just choose a deck that he's submitted previously, and I really like Peer and Toothy, so obviously decided to go with that. Just a tapped red land from Mizzet, and holding up the blue mana, unfortunately. Thassa will allow us to scry, and that's a land. We will keep that on top. Not getting into many blue lands, unfortunately, but we can search those up with the green mana. So I think if the sword player is going to be coming in at us, we will make the Toothy unblockable, and we'll get a nice chunk of commander damage onto them. Might be able to take them out next turn if we play the right spell. So we'll swing in down the middle. Hopefully that'll be a decent warning shot for them. Alright, the Enchantress player playing an Exploration and a Delaying Shield. That is one card they are down to. The Brass Squire activating again because Sigiled Sword of Valeron is being equipped to the Kediss. So again, we'll draw a card, put 2+ counters on Toothy. And then Bravado enchants the Rograkh, +1/+1 for each other creature you control. And then they turn in sideways. Kediss going into the left. The Wolf token that they got from the sword goes into the left. And we get the Rograkh again. They're really testing fate. They know that we can make the Toothy unblockable. They must fancy their odds of outracing us. Anyway, that hits because we have no chance of blocking protection from blue and green. Oh wow, and the Eldrazi flashed up again there. We've only got the one Kozilek in the deck that has the shuffle effect, but hitting it twice in a row here, so our graveyard gets shuffled back in yet again. Bounce land for the Izzet player in Izzet Boilerworks. And then the first spell they've cast in a while, the Mercurial Chemister. Now, Niv Mizzet has quite a full hand already, so I'm wondering if it's time for the Time Spiral now. We need 3 pieces of blue mana to Time Spiral and make Toothy unblockable, and we'll be able to knock a player out there. So it might be time to pull the trigger on that. A Temple of the False God is on top with the Scry. I don't think we're going to have enough blue mana, so let's try and get into an island. Put that on the bottom. And there we go, we do get into an island. So the Coalition Relic triggers, we'll make a blue from that. Oh, we actually get 2 blue mana. I forgot it has 2 charge counters on it thanks to Pia, so yeah, we would have had enough blue mana anyway, but I would like to make islands regardless. So it is Time Spiral. Oh, and I actually forgot about the untap thing on that. Whoops, could have floated 3 mana there. Regardless, Toothy jumps up to a massive amount. And then we can make that unblockable straight away. We'll swing in down the middle because they seem insistent on hitting us with the sword. And that takes a player out already. 32 commander damage with Toothy. That's how explosive Toothy can be. So we'll end the turn putting the 2 charge counters on Coalition Relic. And let's go for the Cultivate. We can finally get some islands going here. An Enchantress in Satyr Enchanter comes down, followed by Omen of the Hunt. And we just refilled their hand with the wheel, so I'm sure they're going to be able to get something going in the next few turns. Anyway, that's all they've got for us. Over to the Izzet player. And they drop for us a Glaring Spotlight, so more hexproof hate over there. Activating the Mercurial Chemister, which will trigger the Rograkh Armor Saw. So we will draw a card there, put a couple of plus counters on Toothy again. And that's a shame, our opponent takes out Toothy. That was with a Reality Shift. So, yeah, that is instant speed. They obviously want to make sure that we don't take out either player. We do draw a hell of a lot of cards here, though. Including Omniscience. Do we have enough for Omniscience? That'd be really good with all this stuff in hand. Oh, but they follow it up with a by force. That's a hell of a turn for our opponent. Getting rid of Sol Ring and the Coalition Relic. That takes us down 4 mana. So I don't know if we'll be able to do Omniscience. Oath of Druids on top. We have more creatures than anyone else, so I don't think we really care about that. That's a real shame to lose all that mana. Well, let's have a look and see what we've got. We've got plenty of lands to make for the turn. Okay, we've got a Mana Crypt, so let's play out the Mana Crypt. We can obviously make a land for the turn as well. Yeah, it is 10 mana for this, and we've only got 9 mana. That's a real shame. If I played the Temple of the False God last turn, yeah, if I'd worked out that we actually did have enough blue mana to swing in with Toothy unblocked and wheel, then I also would have worked out that we could have gone up a mana in Temple of the False God, could have cast this now. Yeah, that's a real shame. So in that case, I think the thing to do here, to ensure that we'll be able to get down the Omniscience, is to go for Boundless Realms. Hopefully we've got enough basics left in the deck. There are a lot of basics in this list. So we'll go for Boundless Realms. And that will allow us to search up 7 basics into play tapped. And then with the 2 mana we could go Rampant Growth. We've got Lighthouse Chronologist as well, which is... we'll have a surplus of mana to level it up if we get Omniscience out, so that might be worth going for actually. Yeah, let's get that into play. And then we'll turn in sideways towards the Niv Mizzet player to punish them for getting rid of our stuff. And no unlimited hand size unfortunately, so we do have to discard a bunch here. Noteworthy that we maybe could have got down the Sasaya as well, because we do have enough lands in hand to flip that around. Might have been the perfect opportunity to go for that actually. Yeah, that would have been a hell of a lot of mana we would have been generating there. Might have been worth going for instead of the Boundless Realms. Anyhow, that's the hand I've decided on. We can refill our hand once we've emptied it with Omniscience. And that was a board wipe from our opponent, Day of Judgment. So the Omniscience becomes more relevant all of a sudden. They play Mirror Maid as well. And that becomes a copy of the Sterling Grove, so all of their enchantments have Shroud now, including the Sterling Groves. Oh, alright, and a Nevinral's Disc from the Mizzet player. That should deal with the enchantments quite nicely. Hopefully we're not looking like too much of a threat to these two players now. We might be able to play that to our advantage. It's noteworthy that the blue and red player has held up double blue. Alright, and at the end step, Sterling Grove is being cracked. It is the mirror-made copy of Sterling Grove that they sacrificed. Scry with the Thassa reveals Sylvan Library on top. I am going to keep that on top. I want to try and bait counter magic out of my opponent's hand. We might have to wait a turn on the Omniscience actually, because they might be wanting to counter whatever our opponent does instead. They might also counter the Toothy, because it is a scary commander, so let's get out the Toothy. If they counter this, then it frees us up to cast Omniscience this turn. Alright, but they let Toothy down. It was Seal of Primordium that they put on top, by the way. So yeah, the blue player will definitely want to counter that one. So in that case, we'll play out some stuff into the Nevinral's Disc, so that they feel honour bound to crack it straight away. Go for the Psychosis Crawler as well. If that stays in play on a wheel, then we're going to deal a lot of damage to our opponent. But don't feel confident running out the Omniscience into open blue mana. Our opponent, no messing around, just goes straight for the Seal of Primordium, and they saw it coming. So definitely had the counter magic held up. Glad we didn't play the Omniscience into that. It's worth waiting an extra turn sometimes. Now a plea for guidance. Search your library for 2 enchantments. And they search up a Stony Silence. That switches off all artifacts, including mana rocks. Obviously includes the Nevinral's Disc as well. Niv Mizzet playing out the Mystic Sanctuary, putting the Reality Shift back on top of their library, so they'll be able to blow up another creature with that if they want to. And then tapping out into Gadwick the Wizened. That is actually really, really good for us. It refills their hand for the Windfall, and it means they're tapped out so that we can do whatever we want this turn. Alright, so round to our turn. Scry to the top, a Reliquary Tower, fine with me. I think we're ending it this turn. Psychosis Crawler triggers on the draw step, so does Toothy. And we're going to draw more cards with Sylvan Library yet. Okay, there's another land. We've also got Words of Wisdom to put more cards in our opponent's hands, which means the Windfall is even better. So let's just put an island on top, pay 4 life for the instant. And again, Psychosis Crawler and the Toothy are triggering here. So with that, I think it's safe to just Windmill Slam the Omniscience. And there's no free counter magic from our opponent, so that lands. We'll go for Psychic Corrosion straight away before we draw any more. Teferi's Ageless Insight as well will double the number of cards that we draw. And then I was thinking about the Tooth and Nail. I actually don't think that we need to go for Tooth and Nail. We'll probably end up drawing too many cards with that. We do have the Regal Force and Avenger of Zendikar in here, so we could draw a lot of cards, especially with all the lands we've got. But I think instead we'll go for the Rishkar's Expertise, obviously cast that with Omniscience. That will draw us 10 cards as it stands now. So we get 10 plus counters on the Toothy, and then we'll mill each of our opponents for 20 with the Psychic Corrosion. And then it will be 10 damage to our opponents with the Psychic Corrosion. The Niv Mizzet player seems a little bit annoyed that the Nevinral's Disc was switched off. Yeah, the Nevinral's Disc actually wouldn't have done anything about our Omniscience because we didn't play it into the Nevinral's Disc for obvious reasons. Anyway, get Tezzeret the Seeker into play. That is the free spell from Rishkar's Expertise. Don't think we're going to need anything with Tezzeret. We've got all these cards in hand, so all we have to do here is go for Windfall. And we're going to force our opponents to draw as well. So all those triggers go on the stack with Toothy. Actually, I didn't think that through. We probably should have just turned in sideways at both of our opponents. That would have been quicker, wouldn't it? Alright, so that's the game, as we assumed it would be, going down to the Psychosis Crawler. I think we would have got them pretty damn close to being milled out, if not milling them completely. They've got 43 cards left in the deck, maybe they have a shuffle effect in there as well. We made good use of the Kozilek against the Sword player, actually hit it twice there, unbelievably. But failing that, we could always set up a Laboratory Maniac win here. There's also the Thassa's Oracle available to us. Don't mind running this at all because it's not the typical Thassa's Oracle combo. You actually do have to near enough mill yourself out in order to win with this. But in a situation like this, we've got enough devotion to blue, so we can definitely win with Thassa's Oracle as well. So there we are, a massive shout out to Christian for allowing me to play his deck again. He actually gave me the choice of previous decks that he has submitted for the month, so definitely wanted to whip out Pier and Toothy because they are my favourite partners for reasons that you have seen in this game. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Big thank you to the patrons and to Christian Roberts again. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.